So I'm doing a quick video on this HR 5300 titled Department of State Policy Provisions Act. And it was introduced on September 11th, and I don't believe anything has happened since then. I don't think it's been passed anywhere. Um, it says online that it's referred to the House Committee on Foreign Affairs. So before I even get to what I want to talk to you about that, look at that picture on the bottom right. One of my friends posted that, well, actually, a video of this guy in the left in the hat singing, I think, "Over the Rainbow," some Jew, and then yeah. So I hadn't heard of this. 50 states, one Israel. I was like, what the hell is that? Why doesn't it say the USA? One USA and one Israel. And so on the bottom left, you can see it says Prime Minister Netanyahu, or Satanyahu, addresses 50 delegates from the U.S. at the 50 States One Israel conference in Jerusalem on September 15th, right today, 2025, at a time when, and blah, 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 whatever. So, anyway, what they did was they got, I believe, 250 delegates or lawmakers from the United States, five from each state, to go to Israel and I guess suck their dick. So I got to find out who the five are in my state so I can try to get people to vote them out. But pretty freaking insane. So on the top right, it says why it doesn't say one USA, one Israel, right? Which is what you would expect. But it says 50 states, one Israel, and it implies that all U.S. states are aligned under or with Israel, which can be read as either supportive, right? All states support Israel, or critical. The U.S. is overly subservient, or actually, it's dominated by Israel. So the absence of one USA is probably intentional, depending on the creator's motives. So, and it says, and at the end, it says, suggest a loss of independent U.S. identity. That's what my opinion it is. And the U.S. hasn't really had an identity since the end of World War II. Actually, probably even before that. So maybe 1913. You can go back to the Civil War. Or maybe the U.S. was never even legit from the very beginning. So, but anyway, moving on. Here are our fearless lawmakers who really, really, really care about Americans and Christians. They're sucking some Jew dick here. We're getting ready to, I guess. Here's some more. It's unbelievable. Unless these 250 are all Jews themselves, I don't even know. I didn't find a list of who they were, but I think people need to find out who they were. I'm sure the list will be posted somewhere. So anyway, regarding the act, so there's what? This one, section 405 and 612. So 405, extension of war reserve stockpile allies, Israel. And it says for fiscal year 2026, Section 514B of the Foreign Assistance Act of 1961 shall not apply to defense articles to be set aside, earmarked, reserved, or intended for use as reserve stocks and stockpiles in the state of Israel. So I was like, well, what does that mean exactly, I guess? So it just means that for 2026, uh, or it says in other words, the U.S. government is allowing military weapons to be set aside specifically for storage in Israel, even though there are normally rules that might limit or restrict this. Right? You're only allowed, I guess, we're only allowed to send so many weapons to nations, right? But now, I guess we can send an unlimited amount of weapons to the Jews in Israel. So, but not any other country. I mean, obviously, we shouldn't be sending any one bullet to any nation, but so that's pretty crazy. And what are they getting ready for in 2026? So it's going to be interesting. And then there's the logo for the 50 states, one Israel. So I don't know if anybody's into symbology, but is there anything there that really stands out? maybe the Satanic Star, of course, but I don't know. Anyway, so this is section 612, prohibition on U.S. contributions to the UN International Commission of Inquiry on the occupied Palestinian territory, including East Jerusalem and Israel. Wait, so occupied Palestinian territory, and that includes Israel, right? Because the entire state of Israel is on Palestinian territory. Israel has no right to that land because the Israelis are not Israelites. So, and when you really get down to it, even the Palestinians, it's not even really their land either, although they've been living there longer than obviously the Jews. You know, they had an actual state there 100 or 200 years ago or whatever, unlike what's the monstrosity that's currently there. Anyway, so he says the act says no funds are authorized to be made available for any grant, payment, or other contribution to the UN International Commission of Inquiry on the occupied Palestinian territory, including whatever. I'm just repeating. Sorry. Anyway, so what it's saying is the U.S. government is not allowed to give any money to the United Nations International Commission of Inquiry that is investigating the occupied Palestinian territory, right, where all the atrocities are supposedly happening. So it means that the U.S. is cutting off funding to that UN body. So the U.S. doesn't want to support I guess, the world looking into what the Jews are doing to the Palestinian people. So, so this kind of clause is often pushed by lawmakers who support Israel and oppose international investigations they see as unfair or one-sided. Right? But actually, what they're doing is unfair and one-sided. So, unbelievable. It just shows, I mean, the Jews literally, completely, and utterly dominate the United States, the United Nations, and basically every single government in the world. So um, it's crazy. We live in a completely insane and satanic world. But anyway, I think that is all I have. Yep.